So now we're going to do a little basic applique. It's called raw edge applique, and it's done using fusible web, which is basically, you can just see it peeling away here at the corner. It is a very thin layer of glue. Can you see that? Very thin layer of glue, backed with paper. So when you get it, it comes in a roll. The smooth side is the paper. Remember, smooth is the paper, and then the slightly rougher side is the glue. And this is important to remember because you iron this stuff onto your fabric. And if you get it wrong, you ruin your iron and your fabric doesn't stick. So raw edge applique is, like the title says, you don't turn in any edges. You're going to glue it down using this stuff, and then you're going to sew around the edge and do some class of an overlocking stitch, or you can do a straight running stitch as well, and your edges might get slightly ruffled, but so that's what we're going to do. If you don't have this stuff to hand, you can use a temporary basting glue like this stuff, which is backwards, I know on my camera, but it's Odif 505. Any basting glue that will work with your machine, that's not going to gum up a needle, will do. And you just want to make sure that it's stuck on, that you can then keep it in place while you sew it. We don't use pins or anything with this. Well, you can, but this is the easiest. So I'm going to do a simple flower. Very simple. So I'm going to look at all the component parts of this now, and then I'm going to break them up, and I'm going to decide how I'm going to sew them in what order. So this is see-through, so I'm going to put this down. I'm going to move all my fabrics, because I've chosen my fabrics, out of the way. And I'm going to decide, well, this is the center. So I'm going to draw a big circle for the center. That's lovely. And this is my flower. And I'm going to do my flower petals in one piece. You can do them in lots of pieces, or you can do them in one piece, but I'm going to, for the sake of, this is quicker, I'm going to just go round. And I drew this freehand, so you can draw this freehand again. I'm just going around and around and joining it up. And I'm going to cut that out. And I might cut out the middle bit, say cut a circle that big, because just take some of the bulk out. Then we've got the stem. Now, the stem goes in under the petals, so we want a bit longer on the drawing than on the material than we have on the drawing. So I'm going to just do a stem that goes up right beyond the petals on the drawings, and I'm going to just follow it round. There we go, lovely stem. And the leaves are quite straightforward. I'm cutting them all in, drawing them all in separate places on the piece of. I'm using as little as I have to as well of this, because this is, usable stuff, very handy usable stuff. So this leaf goes a little behind, so I won't draw along the edge of the petal or the stem. God, I can't speak English today at all. But I am going to draw a full leaf. So we now have our pieces. Put that over here. Now when I'm doing this stuff, I have a little rag bag of all my bits and bobs from other bits, from the cut-offs, because they're usable pieces of fabric, and they're handy to have if you want something. If you need a tiny bit of green, for example, this bit's already got the backing on it. It was used for something else, and it's handy to have. So don't throw away anything. Don't throw away the bits of spare fusible interweb fusible web. Just hang on to it, and we'll use it again for something else. So my workshop is, as usual, very messy. So I'm going to take out scissors that I can use. Well, I'm going to be cutting this anyway, so I'm going to just cut these out roughly. Okay. La, la, la. You don't have to cut exactly, just cut them out. You're going to be hanging on to all your spare bits of fabric anyway, so that's fine. When you have this on the fabric, you'll be cutting it out more neatly. This is just to get it, and it's handy to leave the lines visible on your paper so that when you're cutting out the final bits of fabric exactly, you have them. The lines are easy to see. And the last bit. Now, we have our pieces. And again, I'm not going to waste any of this stuff. I'm going to put it into my rag bag and use it again later. So, we have a flower. We're now going to choose our fabrics. So I have some fabrics chosen. This is going to be my center. This is going to be my stem. These are going to be my petals. And this is going to be my leaves, because it's already got leaves on it, so it's very handy. So what I'm going to do is, you take the center bit. So this is the right side, this is the wrong side. We put the wrong side facing up. We have a dry iron here. It's handy because you've drawn on the paper, so as long as you got the pencil facing you, make sure it's the rough side going onto the wrong side of your fabric. Whatever drawing you do, incidentally, is going to be, and then we dry iron it. There we go. Just a few seconds so the glue melts. There we go. It's all glued on. So that's that. And we're going to cut it out carefully along the line. And voila! There's our slightly wobbly center of our flower, and we are going to do that with all of them. So I'm going to pause this now for a second while I do this. If I can. Can I pause this? Don't know how to pause this. I can't pause this. Right. I really have to learn how to use this camera. So where are the rest of my fabrics? So this is my stem. So again, we'll do wrong side. This is the right side here on this side. We're going to put that down. The wrong side facing up. We're going to put our stem with the rough side going down. Yes, all of your drawings are going to be the reverse of what you get. That's what I was trying to say. Because you're drawing on the wrong, you're drawing on the paper, which is the wrong side, it's all going to be inverse. So if you've got a particular orientation you want for something, then make sure that whatever way you draw it, it's the opposite of how you want it to turn out, because these are all mirrors. So now I'm going to carefully cut along the drawn lines. La 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 la. And the nice thing about the glue is that it keeps all the stops the fraying, you see. So you can do this with basting spray and other things, but this helpfully stops all the fraying. And because this was drawn freehand, if I'm not hitting the lines exactly, I'm not super fussy, because it's nice when you design it yourself. You can fix it as you go or go off in different directions. If you buy a set pattern, then you are bound to what is there, because otherwise it won't necessarily work. So patterns that you buy or kits that you buy are super. They are absolutely great. They have a lot of good stuff in them. But when you're talking about things that have seam allowances or specific places things need to go, then you must be exact in what you're doing. And the old freehand method doesn't work very well. Now, right side up, going down. And we're going to put our leaf, and I can see the leaves through the fabric, so I'm going to put one leaf kind of lining up with one of the leaves here. You'll notice I'm kind of staying in the corners and at the edges because I don't want to ruin my fabric. This is a medium hot iron. You can go a bit hotter, but I just want to stay as well away from the steam as I can. And this one we'll put on this leaf because this is another similar leaf. So there we go. Wow. Lovely. I'm going to cut these out. Over there. one. This is quite a quick method. You can really spend more time deciding what you're going to do and how you're going to lay them out and what fabrics you're going to use, you know, in the design phase of it. And now the last bit, these guys. Right side down. Can't say that enough. I have ruined more fabric than I care to think of through being confused at this point. So I'm going to tuck that into the corner there. And again, if you keep your pencil lines up, that's why it's handy to not like cut the paper out at your pencil line, because if you've got your pencil line showing, it's very easy to know which side is the paper, and then you don't ruin your iron. So I'm just thinking I need to get some, oh, there's some more of it. I need to get some white fabric or backing fabric now for this. Do you know, I might put them on. Now the iron is now finished with. Okay. So I'm going to put them onto this fabric because it's handy and it's nearby. I'm actually going to give this a quick iron. We're not actually finished with the iron yet. No. So I'm going to cut this out. Now I am going to cut the center out of this because it can be quite a lot of bulk. Not only are you adding another layer of fabric, but you're adding another layer of glue. You can get different weights of this fusible web, and it's always handy to have some very light stuff on hand. It means the thickness of the glue layer, because the more you have, the more layers you have, the more you're sewing through, and also the more glue you have, this, you know, it adds a little stiffness to it. That can't be denied. So if you've got loads of glue layers, then you're going to have more and more stiffness, and you don't want to have these kind of, and your lovely applique cushion or brooch or whatever you're doing with it. And again, putting it over my rag bag, I am going to cut out the middle because it will make a little difference. And I now get a little dot of blue. So now what we're going to do is we are going to decide in what order we put our pieces down. So yes, you can see this, that's good. So I have my pieces. I have my flower. There, you can see that. And that. And I have this. We can already see that these are layering up in different kind of orders, that we're going to put some bits on top and some bits underneath. And that. And that. So maybe I'll put the leaves down first, and then I'll put the stem down, and then I'll put the flowers, and then I will the petals, and I might cut this out a little bit more, and then I'll put this in. So no, I'll leave it. It's going to be a bit avant-garde. So I am going to take everything away that I'm not using. I'm going to remember where I put these, and I take off the paper, right? In fact, you take off the paper now at this point on all of them. It can be a little fiddly. If you rummage it around, it can come off a bit easier. There we go, we've got a corner. Got an edge. And pair of tweezers is not a bad thing to have at this point. Oh. I'm going to take all I'm going to have to get more professional at these things. Maybe my flower won't have any stems. Wouldn't that be fun? No, there we go. That's another bit. And now the back of your fabric, you see, is coated with a little skinny layer of glue, which is great. And the thing is, though, once you have put the iron on this, that's it. It's not coming up. So you have to be sure about where you're placing it and all that before you put the iron on it, because you can go to all this work and then fall at the last hurdle. No. And then, so I'm going to just I'm going to kind of center this hereabouts. Maybe we'll put this like this. There we go. Tra-la-la. So we're going to have one leaf here. One leaf here, and they're both going to go under the stem. So I'm going to hold these, and there we go. Yeah, they're glued down. If you're using invisible thread, you can probably put it all down now and then just do a stitch all around the edge, but I don't like to use invisible thread. I like to use kind of matching threads or complementary threads, partly because the invisible thread, any that I've found anyway, is, you know, like a fishing reel. It's thin plastic, and you can feel it. Now, there are different stitches you can use for this. I'm going to use a zigzag. Now I've done a tester on a bit of old scrap fabric to see what size. You can see these are different widths, and I've changed the width and I've changed the length, and I've toyed around, and I've got one that I like, and that's going to work with this size. And I'm going to very carefully start actually under where it's going to be covered. Start, and we're just going to go, and we're going to go all around the edge. Just make sure that we're covering the edge as we're going. And back down the other side. I'm just using an ordinary foot for this, nothing fancy. And I'm just going to move over to this one and get the threads out of the way, and off we go again. So an ordinary foot, nothing fancy. You can use lots of different stitches. I mean, my machines come with lots of different stitches, but I tend to use blanket stitch or zigzag. They're my kind of go-to raw edge applique stitches. Yeah, that's them sewn. And I picked a thread that works with not just these greens but with the blue, and then I'll just change my thread for the circle in the middle, so they look fine there now like that. So now we are going to find our next thing to go down is this. So we were going to put it like this, weren't we? Over the top. Orient this a bit better now. So I'm just going to press this And hold it for a few seconds. Only dry iron is fine, you don't want wet glue. I'm just going to get this. You can't see, but I've got a sleeping cat in front of the sewing machine. Just getting my thread ready for the center bit. It's not quite a match, but it will be good enough. It will be lovely. So again, I'm going to start where it's covered over, and I'm going to put my needle down, and we're going to go. And down the other side. Now then, we're going to cut off the loose threads again. And at the back. Now, the next thing we're going to put down is our petals. And place these somewhere lovely. There we go, I'm happy with that. No, it's okay. And again, we're just going to, and here we can't start, everything is going to be closed. So I'm going to just, everything's going to be open. So nothing is being covered in this one. So this is the thread away. There we go. Oh, then. So we're just going to start. Needle down. Now this we go a little slower because we're going round and around and around. I'm going to cut this now. Doesn't get in the way too much. And we just trace around here. Now you might want to practice going around the inner curves, because where you put your needle down will impact on whether you have stitches open or stitches closed at that point. And you can do it according how you like. There's no rules about it. It's just to be aware that it does have an effect on the look of the stitches if you're using zigzag, and you can make a choice about how they look. Make sure I don't lose my little center. Getting caught up in rubbish over to the side now of the table. There we go. Now. Ooh. It's very nearly a disaster. I lifted my fabric at the same time as my needle lifted. And that way you get jogs, but luckily it wasn't a disaster. Nearly around, 2 more petals. if you do a lot of these, you can really get into the swing of it. There we go, just overlapping a little bit. Now then, woof, last bit of the flower, and we're going to change our thread to match. But this is looking rather pretty. It's quite a straightforward design, but it's a great one to start on because, you know, it can you can make beautiful pieces, just different flowers of different colors, different heights, you know, and then you can place a piece of green fabric over the whole lot and you have your grass, and voila, you have a beautiful picture. Now I'm going to pop this down in the middle. And again, and while it's just there for seconds, I'm going to change my thread. Now, that's quite enough of that. So I'm changing my thread to a more sympathetic color. It doesn't exactly match, but it's in the right range, and that will do. Thank goodness for automatic threaders. I would be staring at that squint-eyed for quite some time, and we'd all be tremendously bored. So, and these top loaders are very handy. I was sewing on an old Singer when I was a kid. The Singer is probably still going somewhere. It was my mother's from when she was young. She got it when she was 16, which means it's tremendously old. But it was a front loader, and you thread, and it had one stitch. But it was solid. Oh my god, it was solid. So off we go. And this is a very tight circle, so I'm just going to tip away nice and slowly here. So she's speeding up a little. Okay, and just rearrange it slightly. And again, the zigzag stitch is working fine on all of this. And if your threads match very well, you won't see it at all really. It'll just be a subconscious texture. If they don't match, your sewing had better be accurate. Mine is all right. It's good enough for me. How good or bad you are at this will really depend on how much, how much you do it and how much practice you do and how often you do it. And you can get out of practice. Yeah, there we go. That's it. We're done. We have a flower applique, which you now have a piece with a lovely flower on it, or whatever you drew yourself. The method stays the same, whatever pattern you're using. Like I say, you can use invisible thread. I just don't like feeling the plastic. And voila, put it on a bag, put it on a pocket, make it bigger, you could put borders on this and have this as a block in a patchwork quilt. Yeah, there you go.